My name is Katrina and I am the outreach worker with the Irish Support Agency. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that I'm hosting this webinar from the lands of the Gadigal people. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which all of you are watching. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Dóchas will be brought to you on the first Monday of every month, with each session exploring a different aspect of health and well-being. All of our previous webinars can be found on the Irish Support Agency's YouTube channel. So tonight we're going to explore the topic of coping with a serious health event living abroad. And 3 of our lovely participants tonight have actually found themselves in this position. So we are going to hear from them about their personal experience and how they coped. We will also hear from a professional experience and receive some guidance from Dr. Conor McCaffrey. So I'd like to say as well, at the Irish Support Agency, we're always here to provide assistance and support in any way that we can. And tonight, for anyone that has any questions throughout the conversation, please feel free to pop these into the chat box. And hopefully, if we've got some time at the end, we'll be able to get to these. So welcome, Helen, Martine, Gillian and Conor. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you all feeling? Okay?
Yeah, feeling great. Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. So Martine, since you're first off the bat there, maybe I'll ask you to introduce yourself and if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience and what your diagnosis was.
Yeah, so my name is Martine Dines. I'm from Belfast in the north of Ireland, if you can tell with the accent. I've been in Australia for 8.5 years. Just recently celebrated my 31st birthday, where I took my friends on a lovely run with the city to surf. I have been living in Sydney for the whole time I've been in Australia, apart from regional work. We were in Tasmania and Victoria for a little while. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in June 21 of last year. We also discovered a genetic fault in our family called BRCA2, meaning our family are significantly higher risk of breast cancer. So since then, I've gone through extensive treatment, surgery, fertility treatment, chemotherapy and radiation. At the minute, I'm still going through hormone therapy and I will have another mastectomy in 5 weeks' time.
Yeah, it's been a big year for you, Martine. Glad to see you looking well and hopefully out the other side soon. And maybe we'll get Helen to introduce herself next.
There we go. Hello. Hi, everyone. I think I was saying to the others a few minutes ago, I may be the only Dubliner on the call. I'm Helen Waldron from Dublin. I'm loving all the northern accents. I've been here probably longer than some of you have been alive, I'm embarrassed to say. I came to Australia in '88, having left Dublin, lived in the States for a bit and taught English in Hong Kong, but I arrived here and loved the place and married an Englishman very quickly after arriving, much to the surprise of my father from County Mayo, who never thought that would happen. And we, in fact, amicably divorced probably 15 years ago. I have a son who lives with me who was born on St. Patrick's Day, and I live here in Sydney in Glebe, Camperdown area. And my story, similar to Martine, I also was diagnosed with breast cancer. And again, because of your age, you wouldn't be going through this yet, but there is a 2-yearly screening that they do in New South Wales, depending on what age you reach, and had just normal screening and was called to be told there was a shadow. And in fact, would you believe, my mum passed away that night, the day I was told I had a shadow. And so I'd already made an appointment to go in for further tests. So the day I flew home for her funeral in January of this year was the day cancer was confirmed. So that was a bit of a double whammy, as you can imagine, pretty upsetting. But I have to say, I kind of turned it around in my head and just feel like how lucky we are to live for whatever length of time any of you are here for in a country and in a state where the health system just came to the fore, and we'll cover off that a little bit more as we go along. I feel very supported. So I had a small lump removed. It was, thankfully, it hadn't spread, but it was aggressive. So I too went through 3 months of chemotherapy. I've just finished a a 6-week stint spread over 6 weeks of radiotherapy. And I'm now in my second bout of penicillin with a throat infection, because as Martine would know, I guess these treatments certainly kill off the cancer, hopefully, but what they also do is kill off your entire immune system. So I don't normally sound quite as deep and husky as this. But yes, that's my story. And feeling, if anything, I guess I feel a bit lucky at the moment, which is great. Thank you. Great to be here.
Absolutely. And Gillian, you are going to be lucky last in terms of the 3 participants for your personal experience. So would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Gillian Costello. I'm originally from Tralee, County Kerry. I've been living in Sydney nearly the last 10 years. I work here as a registered nurse. So just there back in July, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. So this comes under the umbrella of inflammatory bowel disease. So it just affects the lining of your GI tract. So anywhere from your mouth to your, say your anus. So I was on treatment for that, but then in September, I had a huge flare up where I had to have emergency surgery, and where I had to have a bowel resection, where I had part of my large bowel, small bowel, and an ileostomy, which is a stoma formation. And then just there about back in June this year, I actually had it reversed. So I was lucky to have that done. You can hear me okay?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So, apologies. I think my internet is actually the one that's been a little unstable. But I think everyone else caught that okay. Is that right? Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, that's good. Sorry, Gillian. The wind, it's very unusual. And look, I will welcome Conor, but we'll do your introduction in a few moments. I just wanted to continue on, Gillian, from your introduction and asking, did you have a GP already here in Australia, and how quickly did things happen for you in terms of getting support?
So yes, I did have a GP, but I found that I kind of, with having the medical background, I was one chasing up and kind of pushing for further, like why aren't I like getting results from these bloods, and like I'm having these symptoms, can I push like for maybe an X-ray or a follow-up with a consultant? So I think I kind of had to do for the follow-up, and then after my surgery I did change to a different GP and a different consultant because of my previous experience.
Yeah, well, look, and that's something that we're going to talk about later with Conor, but I think that that's really powerful to know that you don't just have to stick with the GP that you have, because I think that's a lot of our experience when we live back in Ireland, that you are welcome to change and you are welcome to find someone that is supportive. And what about yourself, Martine? Had you got a regular GP that you were seeing, or that you had a relationship with already? And what was your experience?
I would say the first 5 years that I was in Australia, I didn't have a regular GP. I just went to any bulk billed doctor or dentist that if I needed to. And I think, lucky enough, I didn't have any other health conditions in my life. But I was actually recommended a doctor about 3 years ago by a friend, because my partner and I were meant to get married in 2019. And I thought, I'd love to be blessed to have, a baby after the wedding. So I want to, get registered with a GP that knows us personally, that can help us, obviously with the baby and all of that. So I knew my doctor for around, I think it was a year or 2 years before I got diagnosed. And I think that I, feel really blessed that I was registered with her, because I'm sure you're a brilliant Dr. Conor, but in terms of her, she just completely blew me away with the level of care and how quick that support I was given and the treatment that had happened. So to give you a bit of an idea of how quick things were for myself was I found lumps on the Saturday in Hamilton Island. We were celebrating what was meant to be our second wedding date, our second wedding day, and booked an appointment to see my GP on the Monday. After an examination, she sent me straight away for an ultrasound at Spectrum. Within 48 hours, they called me to go back for a mammogram and a biopsy. And then within 4 days later, I was diagnosed with the breast cancer. But then it didn't stop there. So my doctor had booked me into the cancer clinic on the Wednesday. I suppose doctors know these things, that she probably knew it wasn't going to be good news. Booked me in on the Wednesday, and I remember on the Thursday and the Friday, my phone was just hopping with calls with the breast care nurses at the Royal Randwick Women's Hospital. They had booked me in for around 11 different appointments, and that was with genetics, MRIs, PET scans, oncology, everything that you can think of. And within 12 days, I was in surgery having a mastectomy and a reconstruction. And it was soon after that, like, it just didn't stop. The appointments just kept coming and coming, which I was really happy about. They did ask me, you know, were things moving too fast, that I need to slow down? Did they want me to slow down? But I didn't. I just wanted the process to move as fast as possible. So I feel very lucky, and obviously sorry to hear that happened to you, Gillian, but I feel very grateful that I did have a really good doctor at the time.
Absolutely. Wow. Things just went from 0 to 100 for you. And yeah, like, I'm sure for a lot of people that can probably feel overwhelming, but to know that we're in a country with a healthcare system that is so on top of it, and hopefully, you know, that is going to be most people's experience. And what about you, Helen? Had you got a GP that you're an established relationship with?
Well, it's funny, it's somewhere between Gillian and Martine, and it's probably worth noting this for people. I've lived in Glebe for 23 years, and I've been going to the Glebe Medical Centre, but I've probably seen 30 or 40 doctors over those years, and and they've all been great, and there's been some consistent ones, but I've never actually said I'd like that person to be my doctor. And ironically, about 2 years ago, I met a particular one and thought she seemed fabulous and I should allocate myself to her. So it is a tip I'd give people. I guess when you're, you know, earlier on in your time in Australia, you probably do look for the ease and of the bulk billing. But if you do start going to a clinic, do try and get them to allocate you to a doctor or ask for one yourself, to the point where, similar to you, Martine, the speed was, you know, 3 days after the shadow was in for full tests. And I flew out to Ireland, as I said, that night. I was home for 2 weeks for all that entailed. But as soon as I was back, my GP had set up an appointment for the day after I got back. And in fact, she was so lovely. She was even teary on the phone. It was a telehealth appointment because obviously height of COVID impacted on how we all deal with these things. But similar to you, just the combination of the various different parts of the health system that come together, and they recognized, I think, and certainly that's been my experience, that, you know, you're kind of trying to figure it all out. And, you know, we're all probably smart, capable people, but it's a lot of, you know, I live just up the road from the Chris O'Brien Centre, which is fantastic. And I guess the help that they give you in trying to move you through the journey with as much support as you can. At the Chris O'Brien Lifehouse, they have something called the living room. So there's a holistic approach there's a wig library, and there's 4 free massages, and there's nutrition, and there's a gym. There's all these other alternatives that you can tap into. And I guess my comment to anyone listening is ask and see what's available and tap into as much as you can.
Absolutely. I think, you know, knowing what all your options are and what's available to you, even if you're not ready for it in that moment, knowing that it's there. Yeah. And Conor, from you listening to this and what you see with patients, I suppose, it's important to know, what are the biggest barriers that you hear from clients in terms of patients' access and healthcare, and what can we do to change that? Oh, I can't hear you, Conor.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. You'll notice I had to do a quick move. I don't know what was going on with my Wi-Fi tonight, typical, but yeah. Can you hear me?
Sorry. So yeah, just finding a GP that you have a good relationship with and you trust is one of the big things. And GPs in Australia do tend to move around quite a bit, so that can be a bit of a challenge to find somebody that you trust and you like, and it's going to be proactive and guide you through any major issues that you have. have. In terms of barriers, I mean, obviously cost is going to be a barrier for a lot of people, and they do generally when you're younger and you don't have those serious health conditions, going to a bulk billing medical center makes sense, because for cost reasons. But when you do develop a serious health issue, to have that regular GP that you have the relationship with and you have the trust in is very important to people. So cost is a big thing. Waiting times, I guess there's not huge waiting times in Australia for GPs, not like the UK, but so mostly cost and finding someone.
I think that's it, and it's finding the right one for you maybe, and suppose the best way maybe is word of mouth. I'm not sure, should we go by Google reviews or not of different surgeries? You could have someone that's just not happy and will never be happy. But while I have you, Conor, what information would be really helpful for someone at that initial point that's maybe concerned about their health but don't really know what to start? Like, for me, I always think putting notes in your phone, because that long sit in a waiting room, it'll just go out of my head. What would you like to see?
Yeah, look, writing things down is definitely helpful. All of your symptoms and the things you're worried about, and don't be afraid to tell the GP exactly what you're worried about. They'd be surprised the number of people that come in and actually don't actually say what they're really worried about. They say their symptoms and expect the GP to work it out. So it is important just to be open and say, this is my concerns. Have it written down, have somebody with you who can listen to the information with you and talk to you about it. And also, I mean, there's been studies that show that people from any consultation take about 20 to 30% of the information that you give them, no matter how clear you process it. So, I mean, a good GP will give written information that you can, or websites and stuff that you can access and get more information about whatever diagnosis or investigation that they're planning. And also, you can always go back as well, and go back as many times as you want for clarification. GPs don't mind that at all. So it's not bothering them to go back just to clarify things in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in a conversation that we had before, you'd mentioned sometimes the specialists can come out with really fancy language or medical terms that you don't understand. And you may feel when you're with the specialist that you're a bit rushed in and out and you're not getting the answers that you have. So being able to bring that information to a GP, you should be able to be a bit of a translator, so to speak.
Yeah, well, a good GP will be able to, put it, explain it in a way that you can understand, and sort of take the technical jargon out of it, and also guide you through the process as well, and be able to tell you what options are available for you, and what services are there as well in the local area.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I suppose maybe I'll just throw this question back to the panel, and that at any point when you received your diagnosis, did you ever feel that you had your concerns dismissed, or that things weren't properly explained to you?
No, the opposite really, which was wonderful. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's really...
As Conor says, a lot of the times you are getting a lot of new information, and one of the side effects of this, of course, is you spend way too much time early on Googling and trying to work out, just how bad it is or what your future might hold, etc. And, it took me about 3 weeks of realizing that was such a completely unhelpful exercise to do. But so pretty much every person that I went to see, whether it was a chemoradiologist or the clinic, the living room, or the going back to the GP, or whatever range of specialists you were going to see, and I did genetic testing as well, Martine, everyone gives you some written paper and links upon links upon links to various different sources of information. So it's about taking that information and absorbing the accurate information rather than trying to assume and assess and guess really what may lie ahead. Just take the professional information. I would highly recommend.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing maybe to note as well, is that every person's experience is totally individual. Although two of you may share the same diagnosis, you have a totally different medical experience as well as personal experience. So while it's helpful, maybe just not becoming fixated on that person's and thinking that yours may be the same. Okay. Does anyone else have anything on that?
Yeah.
question?
Sorry, I just cut out there for a second, but I think I heard the majority of what you were saying there, Helen, but I was exactly the same. I felt 100% supported with my GP, and I do feel very lucky that I did have that relationship with her prior. And the same as yourself, Helen, you can really fall down a rabbit hole on Google when you're searching. And the first thing that I asked my doctor was, am I going to die? How long am I going to live for? Like all these really confronting questions, but I felt comfortable enough to ask them to her. Even when I left the clinic that day, she sent me a text message through later off obviously the GP's system with a website to use. And she says, use this website, don't look at anything else. And then even at the Royal Randwick, there was 2 breast care nurses that were responsible for coordinating all of their diaries. My diaries and my appointments. And there was no time where I ever felt like, oh, I can't contact them, like I'm being a pest. I always felt like I was, all my calls were well received. I got the information that I needed. And even, I suppose, at weekends, there was out of hours contact numbers as well, which I found was, incredible. I actually remember one time where I was having chemo, and one night I was really really sick one night from chemo. And I'm like a type of person that can be quite well organized. So I had all the information in a booklet here. And it was through the pandemic, but we managed to get an exemption to get my parents here. And they were like, like, what do we do? What do we do? And I was able to say, go into the folder, get the number, ring that number. And they just were absolutely blown away with the level of care that I had available to me, both during normal, Monday to Friday, and then obviously at the weekend at night times. So never did I feel like my concerns were dismissed or things weren't explained to me properly. I felt like I had really good care from my medical team.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Without wanting to sound evangelical about all of this, I mean, similar to you, Martine, like up the road at Chris O'Brien Lifehouse, even the people in the cafe know that people going through there are not well. And, they also, the staff sing in a choir, and they had art workshops going on. There's all these other people around the healthcare system. Every single person I came across just could not help you enough. So that hopefully is not just relating to having our diagnoses, but the healthcare system in general.
Just in general. And I think that kind of leads me into what I wanted to know next was, and this may be more so towards Martine and Gillian, that, haven't been here as long as yourself, Helen, but girls, how did you feel when you were diagnosed, like so far away from home? Did you have the temptation at any point to think, although the health system seems great here, I just want to get back to Ireland and at least I'll have my family and my friends back there? Did that cross your mind?
I feel that if I was at home, I could be still on the emergency trolley.
Oh. Oh, well, I think it's very positive that you're here then, Gillian.
Very lucky when it was like 4 a.m. that I went into the emergency department here in Prince of Wales, and I was straight in, and I got such good care, and all the scans and x-rays and bloods, everything was done straight away. And a few hours later I was admitted to the ward, and I got to see my surgeon and specialist, and so I was delighted I was actually in the healthcare here in Sydney.
Oh, fantastic. And I suppose in one way, maybe your family at home just want to take care of you and would want you back, but that's also really reassuring for them, because we are hearing the horror stories from back there. Unfortunately, the wait list for people that may be in a similar position as yourself, like they're just not getting through it like they'd hope.
Yeah, no, I was so lucky that I had the support of my housemates and my friends, and then they had all the numbers of my family at home and were communicating. So I was so lucky in that way, because it was during COVID and lockdown, so I couldn't have years while I was in the hospital. So the phone was constantly on the go. So yeah, no, I felt really well supported.
Oh, that's brilliant. And, you know, Martine, you had touched on, we were able to get your family were able to come out. Did it feel like you were able to breathe once they arrived here, and that you could properly focus on your treatment then?
Yeah, 100%. I think when I first got diagnosed, immediately I thought, no way am I going home. And I think the way that the treatment was happening here also didn't really give me an option to consider it. I feel like my family and maybe even Sean, my partner, had considered, you know, should we move home? But we were in the peak of the pandemic. The borders were shut and everything was just moving very quickly here, that I just thought, you know, I just knew that I was in the right place at the right time. And if you ask me what was the best decision I've made in my life, was definitely to come to Australia in the first place and to stay here for my treatment. Because I couldn't imagine, I suppose quite similar to yourself, Gillian, you probably feel like I'd still be maybe going through radiation now. I wouldn't have my second surgery coming up. I probably wouldn't been given the fertility treatment that I had, and even a reconstruction. So I was able to have a mastectomy, a skin spine mastectomy with immediate reconstruction. And as a young girl, you know, living on the beach, like it was just amazing that I was given that opportunity to have that. And obviously it was through Medicare. Some treatment or some tablets that you take isn't through Medicare, but the bulk of it is, which just made it even an easier decision for me. Quite similar to yourself, Helen, I live 2 minutes from the hospital. Everything was at my fingertips. So I felt like, yeah, I was at the right place at the right time. And I think given the Irish community here, like we're all great people. We're all here for the same reason, to better ourselves, to have a better career, to, you know, make money, for better weather, like whatever it may be. And your family, who I suppose your friends become your family here. So you do feel that support from home, that you don't ever feel like you're completely isolated. I have seen amazing things from the Irish community here, and, you know, very proud to be Irish because of that. I just felt like strangers were, you know, coming together for me, and I was like, oh my God, like me out of everybody, like why? But then when you put yourself into, if you put yourself into their shoes and you've seen another girl going through something similar, you would do the same. So although it was far away from home, and again, very incredibly lucky to have my family, my parents here. I think they were here for like 8 months in total, but that was the best decision I ever made, was to stay here for my treatment.
That's fantastic. And yeah, you touched on, Martine, there about having Medicare, and that thankfully the bulk of your costs, you know, are covered by that. And I suppose that's just something that I want to say is, you know, especially for those of us that are from the north of Ireland or that have permanent residency or citizenship, that we're very fortunate that we've got that. But for those on temporary visas that maybe had just took out the basic private health insurance or whatever they may have, that sometimes that decision is actually taken out of their hands unless financially they can find a way to make it work. So and that's something that at the Irish Support Agency we're always willing to do, is help people look at what their situation is and are they entitled to any support, you know, because even with these things, like Centrelink's not the friendliest of places to go and ask questions. I suppose what I kind of just want to know, like, is there things that really got you through, like every day, like so many things that you would think this is what's helping me cope and what's helping me, you know, manage this battle in a way? Anyone want to? Helen, did you have?
I did. I didn't want to jump in if Martine had something to say, though. Did you want to?
No, go ahead, Helen. Yep.
I was just going to say, it's kind of nearly following on from the question you asked Martine and Gillian. about the support you have. So in my case, you're absolutely right. I've been here a long time, and weirdly, you know, going home and seeing my 3 siblings, I'm the youngest of 4. So, you know, for such a sad occasion as my mum's funeral, they all wanted to come back on the plane with me nearly. And I was saying, I don't actually know what sequence of events is going to unfold. And Martine would be familiar with this, whether it's an operation before chemo or, you know, whatever sequence. So I declined for them to come, much to their disappointment. But what I did do was very quickly set up a network of 4 very close friends. And as you said, Martine, oh, Gillian said it actually, your friends here become your family, and they are as close as your family. So I have a friend who's an Irish nurse down in Newtown. I have another friend who's Irish, who lives just up the road, literally beside the hospital. I have someone who lives on the street, and someone who lives over in Roselle, who were my 4 people. And that's one thing I would suggest to anyone going through anything, whether it's medical or emotional or any other issue going through, is just have, you know, a tight-knit group of people. And we set up a little WhatsApp group, and whether it was, you know, I'm quite a, you know, a doer. I've been a single mom for a long time. I do quite a big job. I do, you know, I'm quite like, I'm organized, as you said, Martine, but suddenly to actually have to sit back and accept help was quite difficult at first. But I realized having homemade lasagnas dropped off on a Sunday night wasn't a bad thing at all. So I learned how to say yes quite quickly. The other thing I'd say that I learned, which is you learn things about yourself. So you know, here I am, I'm off doing this job. I do a lot of stuff in the Irish business community and mentoring and business awards and all this kind of stuff. And suddenly you kind of you're watching yourself from above your shoulder, just about going, well, I'm normally a big picture thinker, but what I learned was I like to take things step by step. I didn't want to know what the side effects of, you know, the hormone treatment was going to be at the end of all of this. I wanted to know what the immediate set of circumstances I needed to get my head around. And the other thing I'd say is just trust your gut instinct. So for me, the amount of people who offered to come and sit with me while doing chemo, they'd have had to take out a new ward. I had so many people offer. And in reality, I could not think of anything worse, because I'd spend all my time wondering if they were okay, if they needed a cup of tea or whatever. So I decided that was something that I wanted to do by myself. So you have to kind of trust your gut while building your network and knowing when to let go and when to ask for help or receive help. So it's that was really interesting. I found that really interesting, nearly watching myself doing that. So they were the few of the things that I picked up that I thought were wonderful things to learn.
Oh, fantastic. And look, what I would say on that as well is we have so many people that come through our doors needing support, and they're saying this person's offered help, but no, I don't want to say yes. And I'm like, look, people will not offer it if they don't mean it. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. It's coming from a good place. And I suppose Gillian, I was actually visiting you one day, so I know you've had a very similar experience of the homemade lasagnas and everything else that was on offer. You had a support army as well.
Yeah, I had to get a second fridge in because there was so food. I think as well, I utilized just my friends, because some of them are in healthcare as well. So one of them's a physio, so I got them to come in and like show me different exercises, and a housemate's an occupational therapist. So the chair I'm in, they were like, "Oh no, we have to get you a proper chair. So when people are coming to visit, they don't want to see you in bed. You have to be, you know, up and be comfortable." And just even like the just any of my nursing friends just calling over and just kind of like my housemates don't want to know the gory details, but nursing friends always want to know what happened, and and yeah, so just everyone was really just there and available if I needed them.
Fantastic. Yeah, and that's it. It's about having your network and making use of them. Conor, have you got any tips from a professional point of view on coping or things that people should consider? I suppose maybe we can talk about the mental health side of things when you get that diagnosis. Oh, can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. It's always important to have a good support group. That's probably the most important thing. Most conditions have like support groups attached to them, or sort of national associations that you can access support through as well. So you can usually find those on their websites and stuff like that. And then if you're really struggling, obviously, you know, speaking to your GP and talking about your mental health and how you're feeling and stuff like that, and even getting a referral to see a psychologist and just somebody you can kind of debrief with, somebody independent on a kind of a regular basis, can be helpful as well. So there's lots of support out there, but the most important thing I think is just to talk to people and tell them how you're feeling.
Absolutely. And I think with that and mentioning the psychologist or any service, that's an independent person. So whatever you say in that room or on that call, you know, it's not going to impact, whereas you may hold back from a partner or family members or friends because you'd be afraid of burdening them, I think is what we tend to hear. Did anyone access any counselling services or see a psychologist throughout their experience?
Yeah, I did. That was something that I was going to say as well. I think Irish people inherit this persona, this ego that you just have to get on with it. You know, you often hear people saying, God, look at hers and she's so strong, or, you know, she just gets on with it. She's amazing. She worked while going through treatment. And I felt like it was kind of like building up this wall that you had to be a certain person when you were going through treatment. And I think just, you know, let all that go, because it's absolutely nonsense. Open up and be honest and ask for help for when you need it. That was something I think we all struggle to accept help, but and you don't want to get too far down the line where you feel like you're past the stage of help. So I know throughout my treatment, I was doing counselling. I'm still doing psychologist. I have an appointment tomorrow. I started doing Reiki. I was doing kinesiology. I was doing absolutely every single thing that was offered to me. I didn't even know what kinesiology was, and I absolutely love it at the minute. And I think just being honest with how you're feeling at that present time, and being, you know, it's okay to cry. Like, it's okay to say you need help, and if anything, it's shown as a strength, because you know your faults and you know what is wrong and how you can fix it. So just being a bit open and honest with all of that. And then also just, I think with your friends and stuff, I had a lot of admin tasks that needed to be done, like cancelling the gym, cancelling flights, like those type of stuff that I just didn't need to focus on. I needed to focus on my health. I wrote them on my phone, I screenshotted it, I sent it to my friends, and they delegated it out for me. Wee small things like that just something very small, like calling Qantas for an hour, would have absolutely stressed me out, whereas a friend was able to do that and get me back a refund for a trip that I was meant to have. I think wee small things like that is really, really good. And it's similar to what yourself, Helen, what you said. I think just take one day at a time. There's no point worrying about the future. There's no point worrying about tomorrow, because like reality, it isn't promised to anybody. Just focus on that day. And I actually give myself little tasks, especially during chemo. Helen, I don't know if you had AC chemo, but it's the absolute devil. So I give myself, if I got a shower that day, I was absolutely winning. If I made my bed that day, I was absolutely winning. Like yourself, Gillian, you know, if you get yourself off the bed and into the chair, you're like, oh my God, I'm accomplishing something. So I just give myself little tasks like that kept me accountable for small things. So I wasn't just, you know, kind of not using the head, not using the body, and just trying to move as much as possible.
Fantastic. Look, and that's it. When you achieve the small things, like they may be small to someone, but they're a great thing for you guys. So look, Paul has just actually put in the chat box here, whilst we were talking about that, through the Irish Support Agency as well, we've got Solace, which is a subsidised mental health support service, and we're really proud that we've got Irish practitioners as well. So I think that's, you know, something that you can feel like you're chatting to someone from home, and they understand the distance and the colloquialisms and all them things in between. So does anyone have any questions? Anyone that's watching with us tonight for the participants, or do you have any questions for each other?
I was just going to say I need one of Martine's friends, because I still haven't cancelled my gym membership. But to be fair, I wasn't going the 6 months before I was diagnosed, never mind the 6 months since, but good on you. And just on what you said, I think that's a marvelous idea about your friends and support people. Like what I found about the friends was each one of them brought something different, and that's where you can really rely on them. Like this wonderful friend just up the road said, you can, when you're going for your chemo or your treatment, make sure you put on some lipstick and a nice pair of earrings and scarf. Like she was determined I wasn't going to drag myself up there in a tracksuit from Pennies or something, you know, whereas the medical friend who was a nurse was much more about checking in on the medical side. So you get different things from different people, which I thought was brilliant. Anyway, I'll shush now.
We've got Izzy here who is asking for a Reiki practitioner, any recommendations. So I'm not sure if you want to share who you're seeing, or Izzy, if you want to put in to our contact form on the website, I'm happy to share the information of someone that I see as well. So I'll get back to you tomorrow morning. Brilliant. Well, look.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Una.
So, well, listen, it was lovely to listen to you all speak tonight, and it's great to hear how positive you all sound. It's just been lovely. One of the things I'm interested in is in terms of your workplace and notifying them. How was that information received? And also in terms of finances, and I suppose it's the last thing that you want to be thinking about when you're going through something like that. But were you able to support yourself financially whilst having all of that time off work when you needed to go for treatment?
Yeah. Luckily I've been with my employer for, I think it was 7 years at that stage, or maybe 6 years at that stage. So I felt very lucky that I had been with him that long, that I had accrued sick leave. Again, Irish people, we're our head be hanging off and we'll still go into work some days. So I had a lot of sick leave built up, and also I had a lot of annual leave built up because we were meant to get married twice and I had been banking all my holidays for that.
Right.
So I was able to use 2.5 days of sick leave a week until that ran out, and then I was able to use my annual leave, and then once that ran out, then I was just on unpaid leave at the time. My employer also took the information, like took the news very well. They supported me like incredible, and it was just, I just had that open communication with them from the start, and I think that that's kind of came in my favor now, because now I returned to work in April, so I had 10 months off work, and when I returned back, I was able to go slowly part-time. And I'm now working my way up into full-time, so I'm doing 4 days a week at the minute. And again, I still have that support where I can go to medical appointments, because I still go to the hospital maybe 2-3 times a month. And I obviously have other things that I do, like the psychology, the counsellor and all that, and they support that. So I do feel very, very lucky in that sense. Also during the time that I got diagnosed, my friends got together and put together a GoFundMe. I think for my parents to come out alone was just under 20 grand because of the pandemic. They had to fly business, we had to get the exemption. And obviously financial stress is something that you don't need when you're trying to focus on your health. And I know, Katrina, you came around and obviously were offering me support as well from the Irish Support Agency in terms of counselling and helping me get the exemption with my parents there too. So I do feel very lucky that I had that support, because I do think if you weren't financially able or you couldn't support yourself, things would be very difficult. So that's actually a really good question, Una, and I think it just depends on personal circumstances. So if you feel like you wouldn't have that support financially, or it's just going to be more of a problem for you than a benefit to stay in the country, then that's when you might consider going home. But I feel like people do help, like if it's making dinners, bringing you to appointments, they're all little small things, like even your gym memberships, or if you even messaged your landlord, like you never know what help you can get financially. And I think it's just by throwing your ego away and asking for the help, and just not being pushy or forward. It's just speaking out and being honest, and telling people what you're going through. And I think for myself, I went and started using my social media as a platform to spread awareness. So it meant that people knew what my circumstances were, and I felt like I got a lot of help that way. But absolutely, it's a personal own choice that if you don't want to tell people. But I just feel like it helped me massively by people knowing my circumstances.
Great. Thanks, Martine.
Does Gillian or Helen have anything maybe off the back of that question? I suppose your circumstances are different as well. You know, you're Gillian, you were within the health sector. Was that an advantage or disadvantage?
I think the only advantage that I worked so much during COVID that I had a lot of sick leave and annual leave and AGOs banked up. So I was off for about 3 months, so I was able to use up that sick leave and annual leave. So yeah, I know my employee was so they were so good, and they were like, yeah, no, take whatever time I needed, and they checked in regularly with me, and all my colleagues were contacting me as well, and just wanted me just to, when I was ready to come back to work. And I found as well that while I was off, I just couldn't really just be at home and doing nothing. So I actually did a rehab program, 10 weeks rehab. So it's just like a hydrotherapy, pool and physio. And that was actually part of I was able to get that covered through my private health care. So I was actually that lucky again, and that was covered. And also yourself, Katrina, I got on to you to ask some, just get some support and some tips regarding the Irish Support Agency. And yeah, I was really grateful for that as well.
You're welcome, both of you.
I could learn from the two younger people on this call, because you use the word ego, Martine, and I think I probably had a bit too much of that, thinking there's no way my organization could survive without me. So even though I've been there for well over a decade and had absolutely tons of sick leave, I didn't take much time off at all. I just took a couple of days each time I was doing chemo, and a couple of days here and there. So all up, you know, less than 2 weeks, I'd say I worked through most of it. Having said that, the wonderful thing of being able to work from home was, you know, I'm sitting here in my living room, and between Zoom calls, there's a lovely L-shaped couch over here that saw a lot of action from under a big red blanket during various moments throughout the day. But I was talking to my boss the other day, and I said to him, you know, ironically, and both of you might find this, ironically, it's nearly now that I need to take a week's sick leave to just stop and reflect back and really take some proper learnings from the whole thing. So it's, both of you are still, unfortunately for you, but you're going through the cycle. I'm still going through the tail end of it, but ironically, it's now when I really probably need it. And as I said, this is the second throat infection I've had in the last 6 weeks. I know I'm not physically well, but I also need to just stop and take some time out. So it's whether or not you're paid for it is obviously a really important concern for everyone, but it's also mentally to know when you need to stop and reflect.
Yeah, maybe you need to block out the diary, Helen. I'm sure Conor would say that that's your body giving you a sign that it's time for a holiday. We just have 2 questions here, and we'll try to make them quick. But Christine had asked, was it hard with families worrying at home and trying to convince them that you are in good care? Did you feel a lot of pressure that way in maybe trying to reassure them?
Yeah, I found that I just didn't tell them my full diagnosis at the start, because I didn't really know myself post surgery. So my housemate did know, so she was kind of communicating with 1 or 2 of my sisters, and then my parents didn't know. So then once I could get online and face to face on the phone with them, I kind of gradually told them kind of what happened and what was going on, what the plan was. And then when they could see me, they felt more kind of reassured that, okay, she's okay. And she's got friends there and support, and that, and they don't have to worry, because they wouldn't have been able to fly. And as well with COVID, my family weren't able to come over. So I think just like kind of bit by bit, I was able to kind of communicate across to them. And yeah, so, and I got a trip home there recently as well. So they know that I'm okay and well looked after out here.
Oh, that's lovely. I actually, Darlene's wasn't a question, it was a comment, and it may be interesting for other people that are tuned in or watching back, that on the topic around Medicare and treatment, she's in Melbourne, went through cancer treatment this year and is on a 457 visa. Her treatment was covered under the reciprocal agreement. She has private health insurance, however, didn't need to use it. She went through treatment through Monash, and same as the girls, had great treatment support and a really prompt response. So that's fantastic to hear. All right, unless anyone has any final comments or questions, maybe we will say goodbye for the evening. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. The chat box has gone quiet. So look, I would like to thank you, Martine, Gillian, Helen, and Conor so much for joining us this evening. And you know, it's been a really fantastic topic that I think is not only going to help people now, but in the future as well. And we can direct them back towards this recording. So thanks very much for being so open and honest. And yeah, look, to anyone else that needs support, please feel free to reach out to us through our website or give us a call 0293008019. Okay, good night everyone, and enjoy what's left of the evening. All right. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Yeah, thank you.